Ghosts have been a staple in human culture and beliefs for many centuries, from ancient Greeks and Romans to modern day movies and TV shows. The idea of ghosts and spirits lingering in our living world have captured our imagination and fear. The concept of ghosts have evolved over time, from cultural beliefs to religious traditions and even paranormal experiences. In most recent years, media has significantly helped our perspective of ghosts and spirits change. But it has not only changed how we view them, but how they also have haunted us as well. Hello, all my ghouls and goblins. Welcome to Killer Cafe. I hope you are having a frightful night, and if not, I hope it can only get scarier. Hello, welcome, and I hope you all enjoy my video on how ghosts have haunted us and how the media has changed it over time. It's been a deep dive into this, and I hope you all are super excited to get started. There are many different types and forms of ghosts that have haunted us, from loved ones and passing friends to that blip out of the corner of our eye and so much more. Ghosts have been a staple throughout our entire generation, and they seem to only get crazier and crazier with media coming in. During the Victorian era, it was wild through spiritual practices, but most of them were faked. From the table with your knee or something tied to it to make the table rock, to the bells and literal whistles underneath this shroud and curtain of these seancers as they held out their hands and washed away so much to contact the dead. From their little horns behind the curtains to so much more. Media has changed how we view this, and as we pushed forward throughout the Victorian era, as newspapers came out and told them, hey, these might be fake and might be just little tricksters, the spiritual movement slowly washed away, and we moved into a whole different era. Nowadays, it is very, well, I wouldn't say very taboo, but it is one of the more taboo comments. But you see these ghost hunting stories or TV shows to poltergeist, exorcist, and so much more. It is a wild ride throughout how the ghosts that have supposedly haunt us and the media that has changed and rewritten so much for us. So, with all that being said, let's dive in to, well, the ghosts that haunt us. The ghosts that haunt us could be many different things. They can be the loved ones, the anxieties, and everything in between. For instance, I've had many paranormal experiences. I've had many loved ones passed away, and constantly I'm always looking for little signs and such because, well, I do believe in ghosts. Yes, I know, shocking, but I do believe in ghosts. I think the way the world works, there's just not something that when we pass, that either it's a spirit or something of that nature just can't, well, come back and communicate. Personally, I had my mom pass away when I was 19, and ever since then, because we used to watch ghost shows together, it's been a constant thought or passing blip through my memory of, oh, maybe she's throwing out a sign here and there. I even smell her perfume every once in a while, which is very, very strange when you are on a boat thousands of miles away from your loved ones in the middle of the ocean just doing whatever for the Navy, and you get a whiff of some perfume that smells like your mother when, well, no one should be wearing that type of perfume, especially when that perfume has been like gone for ages, mind you. But nonetheless, There has been so many different kinds of things, and the hauntings that have plagued us for years have constantly arisen in the back of our minds. I know so many people who won't go into dark rooms because they're scared of what could possibly go bump. But whether ghosts are real or not in your mind, there are many different things that we have. From the ghost hunting shows to, like I said, the movies, these constant thoughts and reiterations of ghosts possibly being real are always at our fingertips and in our minds. Many people do deal with a thought of the ghost possibly, being real and dealing with this constant back and forth of, was that a message or am I just being super paranoid? Which most people can be. But the ghosts that also haunt us are the anxieties, the depressions, and everything rising from behind us and in our minds that we might not know how to tackle. For instance, there are many things that we see in dark that aren't actually true. I don't remember exactly what the word is. I will put it probably here to let you know. But the brain will trick you into believing or seeing something that isn't always there. And it's a wild thing that has happened so much throughout my entire life, from walking into a dark room to grab something and looking over in the corner and thinking I see something, to just something as simple as being so spooked out from the ghost stories that I've heard of these places, to thinking I see something just because I'm, well, freaked out from the ghost stories. But like I've said, there are so many ghosts that do haunt us throughout our entire day. And a lot of people say they see ghosts, from psychics to mediums and so on and so forth. I personally don't know if I believe in those types of people, but that is not neither here nor there. I just personally think a lot of them are scam artists and you just have to be careful. But what do you think about those? Media has shaped us so much in how we view ghosts and how we view the supernatural world. From Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, to, I believe it's called The Invisible Man. There are so many different thoughts and passing by movies that we have constantly viewed in our media. I remember one in particular, which obviously many of you have probably seen. It's called The Exorcist. That movie has such a hold on, on our country, nation, the world, everything in between, maybe. I was born in the 90s, but I watched this at a very young age. I watched this, I think, around the age of 5 or 6. And I remember watching it and being terrified of that I would be possessed. Because the way they did the special effects for Reagan have such a chokehold on the world. And even if you don't know who Reagan is or know exactly what The Exorcist is, you do know her face. Because anybody who has been on any type of social media or any type of internet, I've seen or played those games where you go through a maze, and once you get to a certain point, because it's so itty bitty and you're peeking in trying to see it, that all of a sudden the face appears. And it is terrifying, but that is the Reagan possessed face. And I remember specifically, because I grew up in a very Christian household, that my parents were constantly worried about like the possession and the stuff like that. It's a wild thing, wild thought that passes through. But with that, with The Exorcist popping up with the possession of demons, and obviously the many sequels of The Exorcist, there have also been things like The Poltergeist, Insidious, Paranormal Activity. I think that's the most recent one that I can think of that's been in the media, or at least with the movies. And by the way, their budget was so small and they managed to do so much, which, power to them. But there have been so many chokeholds in our society to lead us down a path of either changing how we view the ghosts or changing how we view the spiritual realm. For many, it is more of a religious belief and a cultural belief, and others, it's just due to media or the spooky stories that we hear and the little sounds of bumps going on in the night. Early days of cinema, we had the frightening and malevolent ghosts, and now we have a multitude of different mixes from, like I said, paranormal activity of the frightening ghost that will constantly hurt us to, well, Casper the Friendly Ghost and the ghosts like in Scooby-Doo that we've watched. There are just a multitude of different fluctuations in our media, but they have changed us so much. From most recently, the TV shows. There is obviously Ghost Hunters International, I believe. There's also Ghost Adventurers, I believe. And I think there's one called, like, Ghost Brothers or something. I think I've recently seen. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But there are so many TV shows that have shown supposedly haunted locations and have shown all these crazy places, and you never know if they're real or not, whether they're there for the spook factor or whether they're actually there to make content. With these shows becoming more increasingly popular, it has gotten to the point of where a lot of people want to make contact or want to go on ghost hunts. I personally have been ghost hunting since I was 18. That's almost been 10 years now, and it's wild to see how much of the media influence it has risen to have these paranormal groups start doing random things. I know out here in Idaho, the old Idaho Penitentiary has one every single month with Big River Paranormal, where they will have you walk around the complex at night of the penitentiary and go into certain ones and try to make contact that they know of the ghosts that are supposedly residing in the area. For instance, I do have a video, I will link it up around here, where you can go and look at my paranormal, or at least my old penitentiary video, where I kind of dive into everything. We even talk about Dennis. If you do not know who Dennis is a beautiful, beautiful little thing that I would love you all to be in on, but just a little quick plug there. Nevertheless, media has used all of this of the ghost hunting and the use of all these electronics to almost sensationalize us connecting with the afterlife or of the spirit realm. Ghosts have been supposedly walking the land for forever, but now that we finally are able to get scientific proof that they exist, it seems that more and more people are inclined to believe. There are many different ghosts that can haunt us, whether it be real, imagination, or so on, and we tend to fall into these pits of not knowing whether the ghosts that we see are either real or imagined, from mental illnesses to just something as simple as seeing something out of the corner of our eye and shifting and moving, and realizing later on, maybe a couple minutes or maybe days after, there was most likely a curtain or a bug or something of that nature. We are constantly influenced of what's going on around us, and our religion itself, or at least any of the religious beliefs that we hold or traditions we hold, could influence this. And I've seen recently that the Western half of the world seems to have a bigger hold on this type of ghost or afterlife, while other cultures tend to do something different, where when someone does pass away, they view them as sleeping instead of actually dead, where they will keep them in the home for 2 years and they will give them food and presents and so on. And after 2 years of them being sick and sleeping, they then transition into death, where they will give them a proper burial, or where some will put them in a tomb and constantly take them out every single year and do a big festival with everyone. And the interchange of death and death rituals is a whole another topic, but this is something that we view in our Western culture as weird, as once someone has passed away, we tend to believe their spirit or whatever is going on has moved on, and we will then embalm or and bury their body, or we'll just natural bury their body. Which, side note, a little tangent, have you seen the trees that people are allowed to be buried in? I'm sorry, that's how you get haunted forests, alright? Haunted forests. Why do nobody believes in this? If you bury someone and they become a tree, that's how you get haunted forests. That's my pedestal. That's where I'm at. That's my soapbox. Anywho, let's talk about our religious beliefs and traditions. Religious beliefs play a major role in how we view ghosts and the afterlife. For instance, in Buddhism, if you do become a ghost, then you have to have prayer and offerings to end your suffering. To them, becoming a ghost is negative karma, and you must receive all of these blessings and prayers to move on into your next reincarnation. With others, they view it as a passing on into heaven or hell, and what deeds you have done throughout the years will help you move into that next transition. For me, for instance, I do believe in reincarnation, but I also believe there are different things. I personally think that every religion has their own ways, and we can't all be wrong, right? For my own belief, I am a witch. I believe in multiple different things, but personally, I think that there are possibilities of ghosts and so on that might reside and move out through the world. But each religious belief has a different meaning behind everything, from Christianity of the heaven and hell, and how throughout your life you must show good deeds and do good onto others to help move forward in that world, to Buddhism, where if you don't do righteous works and righteous acts and love onto others, then, well, you're going to get negative karma and become a ghost. And many different religions have their own forms of this, where in, I believe it's ancient Egypt, they were always hoping to move forward into their heaven, where you had to mummify the body and preserve it. So as they transitioned throughout the Nile up to Osiris and Isis, and to be judged against the feather of truth, or their heart against the feather of truth, they would have done so well or so good unto their people and others that their heart must be lighter than the feather of truth and move on into the afterlife. And as you say their name and breathe life into them, they will continue to stay in that realm. Our beliefs have shaped us so much. And that's why I think, especially in The Exorcist and the Poltergeist, that it has caused such a mayhem in people. I remember reading many articles about how The Exorcist influenced so many people to believe that they were possessed because they believed in that. And they saw this happen and they were going through this state of believing, and all of a sudden they were now possessed. And our mind is such an interesting and tricky figure, but it also helps us with so much more. Whether it's a cultural belief, a religious belief, or just media in general, we have seen so much and it has shaped our world and our thinking constantly. And I find that at least the media part of everything so interesting and mystifying, because there are so many TV shows, movies, and so on. I think even articles that I've read that talk about ghosts and the presence, and how either our mind can make us believe or something that we watch can make us believe. Whether it be the show literally Supernatural, Buffy the Vampire, or anything, we have kind of started to demystify the supernatural and the spiritual realm, and how we started to view it almost differently, or at least almost in a different light. These TV shows have helped us so much, and having this almost different realm in our own world to escape or dive into if we wanted to. And I haven't even touched on the books about ghosts, whether they are fiction, nonfiction. There are some romance out there, like, do y'all need help? But nonetheless, there are so much and everything in between. It's amazing what media has done for us and how media has shaped how we view these ghosts and how the hauntings that we are diving in have been, well, not really hauntings so much as just something that our brain has started to shift and realize of other things. And like I said, I do believe in ghosts. I personally think there are many places in the world that is haunted. I've been on paranormal hunts and have gotten things on my recorders or my camera or my photos. It is wild to me that you get these, or that people are not willing to move on or move forward in whatever is their faith. For instance, again, I'm out here in Idaho, the old penitentiary. Many people have gone there. I've gone on ghost hunts there, and it is so interesting and intriguing to me, and how when you're sitting there and you're quiet and you have your eyes closed and you're just listening for everything around you, and you will hear the footsteps or the clanging of the keys or something of that nature. I've been on many throughout this entire penitentiary, mind you, and I have adored this penitentiary because of just the history behind it and how amazing it is. And the one part that I always don't really like going into is the gallows. Even though only one man was hung in those gallows, it's still, you can feel the oppressive weight of people being on death row. But again, did another video, don't need to harp into that. But our brains and our experiences and so much have shaped us. And like I said, I've had personal experiences. I'm originally from Indiana, and I used to work in a theater that was over 102 years old. This theater I grew up in since I was, I think, like 4 or 5. I grew up in this theater, and there were many different ghosts there that were supposedly helping you, from a man named Percy up in the light booth to a little girl named Beth who had very mischievousness about her, and even a woman named Helen. Helen was your helper. She would go around and make sure you were able to find things or something. So whenever you were missing something, you would just kindly ask them to bring it to you or put it back, and well, it would normally appear shortly after. For instance, I was in a pirate show and we had lost, well, most of us girls had lost our bandanas. And this is this is wild to say, because thinking back on it now, I'm like, were we actually missing, or were we just too young of kids and too silly to actually go and hunt and find them? But these bandanas that we wore were very special to us because they were ours. We personally had them, they were bought for us. And I specifically remember my mom was helping out before she passed, and we were able to be the last 2 people up. And mind you, if you've been in a theater production, then you know all the ins and outs and bits and bobs of how theater works, and you know how certain areas are blocked off because, well, the pit for musical and stuff. But we walked up there, my mom and I, the last 2 up there, and we kindly said before we left the dressing room, Percy, we know you're playing jokes on us. Can you please put the bandanas back? Thank you. We walk up the stairs, do what we needed to do, came back down to get ready for the show, and neatly placed on the couch were all the bandanas that were missing. And mind you, my mom, she did believe in spirits and ghosts and such, but she was also a very faith-based woman. It was very hard to shake her, and she was a little bit shaken with that. But, well, it just happened. We don't know. We don't know where those bandanas went. We don't know who brought them down, what brought them down, and so on. There's a little ball, I believe, down there still in the dressing rooms that you can play with the ghost, and they will roll it back to you, and so on and so forth. I spent so many years there. I spent about 13 years before I joined the Navy there. And I remember being filled with so much joy and passion and love for these crazy ghosts that always held a special place in my heart. And being in the Navy as well, you know the stories, the typical stories of the Navy. Every ship, I think, has the same story where you were going on a tiger cruise, which if you don't know what a tiger cruise is, it's where family members can come on board for a couple days, a night, depending on wherever, and they will go across the sea with you. But on this tiger cruise, for when it was first commissioned, a little girl was playing with a ball back aft, and the aft lookout was not watching out for her, and her ball fell over through one of the holes on the side of the ship that held the lines for when you moor up to the pier, and she managed to go through the hole and drown. And now she will haunt back aft and make sure all the lookouts are watching to make sure nobody gets harmed. There are many other stories of different ghosts floating around. I personally lost 2 people due to suicide, and unfortunately you tend to notice if they're on board, especially after they passed. There were many times where my friend Chase would let me know he was here by tickling my back or letting me just know with different little things. But there are many different things that media has shaped us into believing with the ghosts, and I believe personally that there are so much more stuff that I can't even touch with this video. But nonetheless, let me know what you think, and let me know your paranormal experiences. I'd love to know. And with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed my video. I hope you like, subscribe, and all those beautiful YouTube things. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.